Prepare to be shocked and amused as we dive into the craziest things that were once perfectly legal. From mailing your kids through the postal service to exhibiting human zoos, these mind-boggling practices will make you grateful for modern laws. Stick with us to the end, where we reveal the most unbelievable legality that will make you question everything you know about history. Welcome to today's journey through the wild, wild past. Get ready to laugh and gasp at the insane things that people used to do legally. From smoke-filled hospitals to bizarre beauty treatments, you won't believe these were once part of everyday life. So buckle up, because we're about to take a wild ride through history, where up is down, black is white, and mailing a human being was considered a perfectly acceptable Tuesday afternoon activity. Let's go! Picture this. It's the 15th century, you're in a crowded courtroom, but the defendant isn't wearing a powdered wig or carrying a briefcase. Instead, it's a pig. A real, live, snorting pig standing trial for, let's say, stealing a farmer's lunch. In medieval Europe, animals were considered to have the same legal standing as humans, and just like humans, they could be accused, arrested, and put on trial for their crimes. We're talking everything from pigs accused of eating babies, yikes, to snails charged with trespassing. These trials weren't just quick judgments either. They were full-blown legal proceedings, complete with lawyers, witnesses, and even juries. Animals would be assigned legal representation, sometimes a real lawyer, who would argue on their behalf. The punishments? They varied. A guilty verdict could mean anything from a stern talking to, in some cases, the death penalty. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the very idea of human rights was still developing. One of the most shameful manifestations of this was the human zoo. These weren't zoos in the traditional sense, with lions and tigers and bears. Instead, they featured people, primarily from indigenous cultures in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. These individuals were taken from their homes, often against their will, and put on display in cages and enclosures. The exhibits were often designed to emphasize the perceived exoticness or primitiveness of the people on display. Visitors would gawk, take pictures, and marvel at these specimens as if they were animals. It wasn't until the mid-20th century, with the rise of the civil rights movement and a growing awareness of human dignity, that these exhibitions began to be challenged. The last human zoo closed in 1958, but their legacy continues to serve as a chilling reminder of the dangers of racism, colonialism, and the dehumanization of others. We've all woken up after a night of one too many cocktails with a pounding headache and a stomach doing backflips. The idea of hair of the dog having another drink to ease the pain still floats around. Imagine a world where it was actually encouraged. Believe it or not, this was once common practice and completely legal. Bars advertised their wares as hangover cures, claiming a shot of whiskey or a Bloody Mary was just what the doctor ordered. Of course, we know now that drinking more alcohol is the worst thing for a hangover. It makes you wonder what future generations will think of our current hangover cures. Alright, this next one might just take the cake for the most outlandish thing that was once legal. Hold on to your hats, folks, because I'm about to tell you about the time when you could actually mail your children through the United States Postal Service. Yes, you heard that right. In the early 1900s, for a small fee, you could literally ship your child across the country like a package. The parcel post service allowed for the shipping of live animals and, well, children. It was seen as a cheaper and more convenient alternative to train travel, especially for rural families. Parents would simply attach a stamp to their child's clothing, drop them off at the post office, and off they'd go, to be delivered to their destination, sometimes hundreds of miles away. Concerns about the safety and well-being of the children, as well as the ethical implications of treating humans like packages, led to the discontinuation of this service in 1915. It's a bizarre and somewhat unsettling chapter in the history of the Postal Service. Before Netflix and chill, before movie theaters and even radio, there was a much different form of public entertainment: the public execution. For centuries, public executions were considered a perfectly acceptable form of entertainment, drawing massive crowds, eager to witness the ultimate punishment. These weren't just quick and private affairs either. They were elaborate spectacles, often held in town squares or other public spaces. The condemned would be led through the streets, giving onlookers a chance to jeer, throw rotten food, or offer words of encouragement. The methods of execution varied, From hanging to beheading to burning at the stake, each more gruesome than the last. People would place bets on how long the execution would take, and vendors would sell snacks and souvenirs to the eager crowds. Public executions were seen as a way to deter crime, deliver justice, and provide a much-needed dose of entertainment all at the same time. It's a stark reminder of how far we've come in terms of our views on punishment, entertainment, and the value of human life. Imagine a world where, if you were unhappy in your marriage, you could literally put your spouse up for sale. This was a real practice in 18th and 19th century England known as wife selling. The wife had to agree to the sale, often seen as a way to dissolve a marriage for those who couldn't afford a formal divorce. The sale took place at a public market, with the husband leading his wife by a rope or ribbon. Potential buyers would bid on the wife, with the highest bidder taking her home. It's a bizarre and dehumanizing practice that highlights the limited options available to women in those times. Thankfully, wife selling died out in the late 19th century, as divorce laws were reformed and women gained more rights. Alright, this next one is not for the faint of heart. We're talking about grave robbing, but not the kind motivated by treasure or revenge. This was grave robbing for science, or at least, that's how it was justified. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the demand for cadavers for medical research far outstripped the legal supply. Enter the resurrectionists, or body snatchers. These were individuals who made a living by digging up freshly buried corpses and selling them to medical schools. It was a gruesome business, but it was a lucrative one, fueled by the morbid reality of supply and demand. The medical schools, while not officially condoning the practice, often turned a blind eye to the source of their anatomical specimens. It wasn't until the Anatomy Act of 1832 that body snatching began to decline. This law provided a legal means for medical schools to obtain cadavers, easing the demand for stolen bodies. Alright, fashionistas, get ready for this one. Forget designer handbags or statement jewelry, because the hottest accessory in the Victorian era was a living, breathing fish. Yes, you heard that right. Women would literally walk around with bowls of water containing live fish as part of their everyday attire. This wasn't some underground trend either. It was all the rage in the mid-1800s, particularly in France. These weren't your average goldfish bowls either. We're talking elaborately designed glass spheres or even miniature aquariums, often adorned with silver, gold, or precious stones. The fish themselves were often exotic species, carefully chosen for their beauty and rarity. It was a way for women to showcase their wealth and status, as only the wealthiest could afford to maintain such elaborate and delicate accessories. Of course, this trend, like most, eventually faded away, likely due to the impracticality of carrying around a fragile glass bowl filled with water and a living creature. Imagine a world where not only was smoking allowed in hospitals, but it was actually encouraged by the very people who were supposed to be promoting health and well-being. Believe it or not, this was the reality for much of the 20th century. Doctors smoked, nurses smoked, even patients smoked, all within the hallowed halls of hospitals. Cigarette ads often featured doctors endorsing their brands, touting the supposed health benefits of smoking. It's hard to believe now, but back then, people were largely unaware of the dangers of secondhand smoke. Imagine being wheeled into surgery, the smell of disinfectant mingling with the aroma of freshly lit cigarettes. Thankfully, as the evidence linking smoking to lung cancer and other health problems became irrefutable, hospitals slowly began to implement smoking bans. It was a long and gradual process, but by the late 20th century, smoking in hospitals had become largely taboo. It also makes you appreciate the smoke-free environment of modern hospitals. Alright, beauty gurus, this last one is for you. Forget about jade rollers and sheet masks, because in the early 20th century, the secret to a youthful glow was radium. Yes, you heard that right, radioactive radium. Before you start raiding your grandparents' medicine cabinets, let me be clear, this was not a good idea. But back then, people were obsessed with the mysterious properties of radium. Companies added radium to everything from toothpaste to face cream to chocolate. One of the most popular products was Thoradia, a line of cosmetics that promised to rejuvenate the skin and erase wrinkles. Unsurprisingly, these products didn't have the desired effect. Instead of youthful radiance, users often experienced skin burns, anemia, and even cancer. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of scientific fads and the importance of critical thinking. From ridiculous fashion choices to downright dangerous medical practices, we've covered a lot of ground today. It's amazing to think how much society has evolved in just a short amount of time. Imagine what historians will say about selfie sticks and TikTok in 100 years. But here's the thing, what we consider normal today might seem completely insane to future generations. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more mind-blowing history lessons. Until next time, stay curious.